July 26, 2016, an investigative team headed out to a stretch along Highway 126 in Oregon. They were acting on a tip from a detained suspect, who pointed them toward a landmark, mailbox number 18,700. Beneath a steep embankment by the roadside, about 20 feet off the road, officers discovered a woman's body. Her position and location didn't match what you'd expect from a simple accidental fall. On the rocks under the discovery site, there were drag marks and blood, clear signs the body had been moved after sustaining injuries. The examination revealed evidence she had died as a result of aggressive behavior, and there was no indication she ended up there on her own. Hey, everyone! Before we dive into today's case, I just want to ask you to hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment below. I put a lot of effort into bringing you real true crime stories from around the world. Only genuine cases here. Your support really helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate every bit of interaction. To understand the gravity of what happened, we need to rewind and look at who the woman found on that roadside was. Her name was Kaylee Sawyer, born March 2nd, 1993, in Bend, Oregon. She grew up in a big, tight-knit family, with her parents Jamie and Julie, their new partners, and 4 younger brothers. Kaylee was the only daughter. Her loved ones often spoke about her amazing gift for bringing people together. The natural surroundings of Bend shaped a lifestyle that suited Kaylee perfectly. She spent countless hours outdoors, enjoyed active pastimes, and was passionate about photography, painting, and reading. Memories of trips to the library and her love for books showed how eager she was to grow and learn. After high school, Kaylee started working as a dental assistant at Aubrey Dental. Her co-workers often spoke about her natural ability to connect with patients and maintain a warm, professional atmosphere in the office. Always striving to grow, she balanced her job with coursework at Central Oregon Community College, managing both her responsibilities as a student and as a member of a medical team. In her personal life, Kaylee was happy and in a committed relationship with a young man named Cameron. They lived together not far from campus and spent a lot of time with each other's families and friends, always supporting one another in everything they did. At that stage of her life, there were no visible signs of trouble or tension that might have hinted at what was to come. Everything pointed to a young woman with clear goals, steadily building a future, blending her job, her education, and her relationship in a way that seemed harmonious and full of potential. Saturday night, July 23, 2016, would mark a dramatic turning point. That evening, Kaylee joined a group of friends downtown in Bend for a bachelorette party. The plan was simple: hit a few bars, enjoy some music, and just have fun together. Kaylee arrived a bit later than the rest, but quickly found her rhythm, dancing, talking, and joining in the upbeat vibe. As the night wore on, some in the group decided to head home, but Kaylee and one other woman weren't ready to call it a night. They went to another bar. It was there that something happened that would later become a key moment in everything that followed. Kaylee danced with a man she didn't know. One of Cameron's acquaintances was at the bar, saw what was happening, and quickly told him. Cameron showed up almost immediately. At first, the conversation between them was calm, but on the drive home, things shifted. A discussion about what had just happened turned into an argument. Disagreements weren't unusual between them, but this time, emotions ran higher than usual. When they reached the parking lot outside their apartment, they continued talking. Cameron suggested she take a minute to cool off before coming inside. Kaylee stepped out of the car and walked away. Taking a walk when upset wasn't new for her. It was something she did to clear her head. Cameron went back into their apartment, expecting her to return shortly. But time passed, and she didn't. The last message he got from her read, "Goodbye, phone off." Was that message a true reflection of her emotional state, or just an impulsive decision in the heat of the moment? That question would soon become one of the most critical pieces in understanding the events that followed. After Kaylee's final message, all contact with her was cut off. Early on the morning of July 24, 2016, Cameron, increasingly worried by the silence, began searching for her on his own. He walked through nearby streets, checked around their apartment, and retraced the usual paths Kaylee would take when she needed space. He also reached out to friends, but no one had seen or heard from her since she left. As time passed with no sign of her, Cameron contacted her family. To them, this sudden disappearance without explanation felt completely out of character. Kaylee was the kind of person who always let someone know where she was going. She didn't vanish without reason. Their concern deepened even more when she didn't show up to work at Aubrey Dental by noon. Missing a shift without warning was simply something she never did. That absence confirmed what everyone feared. This wasn't just a personal disagreement. Something far more serious was going on. Initial attempts to track her phone only added to the confusion. The location data led them in conflicting directions, toward the Eagle Crest area at one point, then to other spots that had no connection to Kaylee's known routines. These false leads disoriented her family and the first group of volunteers who joined the search effort. Once an official missing person report was filed, police began looking into different possibilities. Among them was Cameron's potential involvement, a standard step in these kinds of investigations, especially when someone close is the last to see the person. That night, his actions and whereabouts were reviewed thoroughly. Even Kaylee's family couldn't completely dismiss the possibility, though they were clear. There had never been anything in their relationship that would justify suspicion. It's important to understand that in the early stages of investigations like this, doubt is often the result of not having enough facts, not necessarily because there's concrete evidence. While police gathered the first pieces of information, the search remained scattered. There were no solid leads, no confirmed sightings, and no clear sense of direction. The case lacked focus, and no one yet realized just how far they would have to go, geographically and emotionally, to uncover the truth about that night. Then came a sudden and dramatic turn. On the morning of July 25, 2016, a woman walked into the Redmond Police Department. Her name was Isabel Lara, and she was married to Edwin Lara, a campus security officer at Central Oregon Community College. She immediately asked to speak to an officer in private. According to police, she appeared extremely distressed. Isabel shared that her husband had come home during the night and confessed something deeply disturbing. He told her, "I hit a girl with my patrol car." When she asked for more details, all he added was, "Her things are in our shed." He then left the house, leaving her in shock. This was the first time Edwin Lara's name was mentioned in the investigation into Kaylee Ann Sawyer's disappearance. What he had reportedly confessed didn't align with what authorities had already pieced together, and it needed to be verified immediately. The body discovered along Highway 126 had not yet been officially identified, but the information Isabel provided suggested there might be a link between the two cases. Officers carefully documented Isabel's statement and immediately asked for details about the vehicle involved. Lara worked in campus security, and his patrol vehicle was part of the Central Oregon Community College fleet. Inspecting that car became a priority. If the incident happened as Isabel described, the vehicle could contain critical evidence inside or out. From that moment, the investigation shifted. What had begun as a missing person case now pointed toward a possible crime, one that may have been committed by someone in a position of public trust. And here's the question that immediately surfaced. Could someone working as a campus security officer accidentally conceal something this serious? If it truly happened the way it was described? That possibility alone explained why Isabel's account immediately captured law enforcement's attention. While there was still no hard evidence, the confession, even secondhand, became the most crucial lead investigators had. Edwin Lara's name now sat at the center of the investigation, linking Kaylee's disappearance to a much darker and more disturbing scenario. Following Isabel's statement, authorities began a full search of the Lara residence. They started with the garage and shed, the same places Isabel mentioned as possible hiding spots. It didn't take long before investigators found something that couldn't be brushed off as a coincidence: a green duffel bag with clear traces of blood. Inside were Kaylee Ann Sawyer's documents, pieces of her clothing, and personal items, later confirmed by her loved ones as hers. As the search continued, the findings grew more disturbing. In the utility area, investigators discovered blood on the floor, not just small drops, but stains that suggested prolonged contact. Nearby was a heavy rock with visible marks on its surface. Forensic experts would later confirm it played a role in the chain of events, but even in the early stages, its presence raised immediate red flags. One item that drew particular interest was Lara's security uniform, found inside the house. It also showed bloodstains, and the amount present was inconsistent with any minor accident. The scope and placement of the stains simply didn't match the story of an accidental roadside incident. Adding to the unease, officers discovered a school project stored in a drawer. It was centered on a known serial offender referred to as the Railroad Killer. While the project itself wasn't considered direct evidence, it was noted in the official report as a detail contributing to the suspect's psychological profile. Taken together, the evidence found inside the Lara home was enough to completely reject the initial claim of a traffic-related incident. The quantity and nature of what was recovered pointed to a violent crime and a deliberate attempt to conceal what had occurred. And as investigators reviewed the scene, one question remained: just how much planning went into this act, when so many pieces, scattered yet concentrated in one location, painted such a damning picture? At this stage in the investigation, it became increasingly clear that Edwin Lara's home was no longer just a secondary point of interest. It was central to understanding what really happened the night Kaylee disappeared. The evidence found inside his residence connected him far more directly to the case than investigators had initially expected. After uncovering those critical pieces, authorities hoped to bring Edwin in for questioning quickly, but that plan unraveled fast. By the time Isabel walked into the Redmond Police Department, Lara was already gone. He had left the house, taken the family car, and vanished, without notifying his wife or contacting anyone at Central Oregon Community College, where he worked in campus security. It wasn't long before law enforcement began tracking his movements and saw that he was heading south. At that point, investigators began viewing him not just as a person of interest in Kaylee Ann Sawyer's disappearance, but as someone actively trying to evade accountability. The first alerts were issued to Oregon State Patrol units and then extended into California. As more information started coming in, it became clear that Kaylee's case was only the beginning. Reports along Lara's route revealed unsettling patterns, strange interactions with women he didn't know, erratic behavior, and travel paths that made no sense for someone simply trying to clear things up. These updates painted the picture of someone deliberately avoiding authorities and operating outside of any normal explanation. The very next day, after Isabel had reported what she knew, Edwin Lara surfaced in the Salem area. That's where the first officially documented escalation in his behavior took place. He spotted a woman, Andrea Mais, as she left her shift at a Ross store. She became the first known victim of his growing attempts to stay in control through force and intimidation. What followed was an abduction, and it showed that Lara had moved well beyond anything related to the original case involving Kaylee. From that point forward, the narrative shifted completely. Law enforcement no longer saw Lara as someone possibly covering up a tragic accident. He was now a fugitive, and a dangerous one, willing to use threats, coercion, and force against strangers in order to maintain control. And here's a critical point. By this stage, his behavior had become patterned, calculated, and posed a serious threat to anyone who crossed his path. As Lara continued driving south, a new investigation thread began to emerge, one in which Kaylee's disappearance was only the first in a growing series of serious incidents. The case now involved new victims, and both Oregon and California authorities were urgently coordinating to stop the progression. When Andrea Mice finished a double shift at Ross in Salem and headed toward her car in the parking lot, all she wanted was to get home and rest. But as soon as she sat down and closed her door, a man forced his way into her vehicle with a gun. That man was Edwin Lara. At that point, he was already being sought by law enforcement, though Andrea had no way of knowing that. He slipped into the passenger seat, threatened her with the weapon, and ordered her to drive, giving her no chance to escape. Andrea complied. Lara directed her south, and they began moving through Oregon. He didn't talk much, but his actions made it clear he was determined to stay in control of everything she did. Andrea tried to remain calm, asking simple, non-threatening questions in hopes of understanding his intentions. His responses were short and scattered. Over the next several hours, Lara kept making her change directions, pulling off into parking lots, then back onto the highway. Eventually, he chose Budget Motel and ordered her to go inside with him. Once inside the room, the tension escalated. Lara took her phone, demanded complete obedience, and told her to stay close. No questions. At one point, Lara began making advances that clearly indicated a shift toward aggressive behavior. Andrea realized that resisting outright could trigger a violent reaction. She quickly shifted tactics, claiming medical conditions and warning of potential risks for him if he continued. These responses slowed him down and bought her precious time. Even under threats and pressure, Andrea continued looking for ways to avoid being harmed. She kept her tone steady, worked to avoid showing fear, and gave the impression that she was cooperating. This approach helped reduce the intensity of the moment, forcing Lara to alternate between threats and attempts at asserting dominance. Later, sitting next to her in that motel room, Lara said something that changed everything. For the first time, he uttered the words, "I killed that girl." Andrea didn't know who he meant. He hadn't mentioned any names, but the way he said it left no doubt. He was serious. Why he chose that moment, or why he chose Andrea to share that information with, is still unclear. But understanding his decision to reveal it, and how he behaved in that moment, gives us insight into the mindset of a person who was no longer just running, but escalating. At that point, Andrea realized she wasn't dealing with someone who had made a mistake and panicked. She was in the hands of someone who had already committed a serious crime and was fully capable of doing it again. She continued to stay composed, choosing her words carefully, doing everything she could not to provoke another outburst. Her ability to stay calm and read the situation likely played a major role in helping her survive the next hours of the ordeal. After the night at the motel, Edwin Lara kept moving south, and his behavior became increasingly aggressive. Andrea Mize was still under his control, but it wouldn't be long before he set his sights on someone else. Near Northern California, close to a Super 8 motel, Lara spotted an older man, Jack Levy, standing beside his car. Without warning, Lara approached and opened fire. Jack was hit, but he survived. This marked a major shift, the first confirmed moment where Lara used deadly force without provocation. Immediately after the shooting, Lara abandoned Andrea's car and made his way to a nearby parking lot. There, he saw a family, 2 adults and a young boy, sitting inside their vehicle. Holding them at gunpoint, he forced them out and made them re-enter the car according to his instructions, taking full control of the situation. Thankfully, he released the family without physical harm and used their vehicle to continue his escape. But Andrea? He didn't let her go. She was still with him, still under his control. His behavior was becoming more erratic by the hour. During this critical stretch of time, Edwin Lara recorded a video message, one that stunned both the public and authorities. In it, he referred to himself as a criminal on the loose. His exact words included a chilling self-identification. "I'm a murderer on the loose." The release of that video sent shockwaves through the region. It made it clear he wasn't just trying to flee quietly. He was openly broadcasting his actions, possibly even signaling his willingness to continue his aggression. Law enforcement agencies across counties began exchanging real-time information. The threat level for the public was officially raised. And here's the thing. That video marked a disturbing shift from a hidden act to open, performative violence. It wasn't just about avoiding capture anymore. Now entire communities were on alert. The pursuit of Lara came to a head as he continued south into California. Eventually, authorities pinpointed his location. Patrol units moved in, and what followed was a high-speed chase. Then, something unexpected happened. Lara himself called emergency services. That call became a turning point in the case. On the line with the dispatcher, Lara admitted he had taken Kaylee Sawyer's life. He said he had a hostage with him, that he was armed, and that he'd surrender peacefully if the police called off the chase. He gave his name and asked for a safe way to pull over. Highway Patrol in Corning, California, set up a roadblock. As officers closed in, Lara pulled his vehicle to the side, threw his weapon out the window, and raised his hands. The arrest followed protocol. Several officers approached simultaneously, removed him from the car, and took him into custody. The second person in the vehicle, Andrea Mice, was safely removed as well. But due to the uncertainty of the situation and the extreme tension at the scene, officers initially detained her as a potential suspect. That's standard procedure until identities and roles are fully confirmed. Once verified as a hostage, she was separated from Lara and placed in the care of professionals trained to assist trauma victims. At this point, the case had reached a defining moment. A direct confession from the suspect, the safe recovery of a hostage, and a clearer picture of the timeline that began in Bend just days earlier. And it's worth highlighting, Lara's emergency call completely changed the nature of the investigation. From that moment forward, law enforcement went from hunting a suspect to handling a surrender and confirming a chain of events. Lara's arrest marked a turning point. He was now in custody, and investigators began the process of verifying his claims and piecing together the full timeline of events. During his initial interview, Edwin Lara quickly became inconsistent. He claimed he had accidentally struck a young woman near the college campus, panicked, and then covered it up out of fear. But when detectives presented the evidence, Kaylee's green duffel bag, blood traces, the damaged rock, and a uniform with biological material, Lara started changing his story. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Edwin Lara gradually changed his story. He eventually admitted that his encounter with Kaylee hadn't been accidental at all. He confessed to abducting her on the college campus, placing her in his patrol vehicle, holding her against her will, and ultimately taking her life by strangulation. He described hitting her with a rock and moving her body. According to his account, he hid the body twice, first near the campus, then later transported it to a spot off Highway 126, where it was eventually discovered. He also admitted to trying to cover his tracks, disposing of clothes, rearranging items, and cleaning blood from the garage and shed. This version of events became the first full timeline that aligned with physical evidence and allowed investigators to connect the dots from that night. While Lara was being questioned, another team of investigators was dispatched to the location he had marked on a map. That's where they found the body, later officially identified as Kaylee Sawyer. The forensic evidence at the scene confirmed what Lara eventually confessed to and debunked his earlier claims about an accident. Here's something worth noting. Lara only changed his story when confronted with new evidence. That detail alone shows why his initial statements couldn't be taken at face value without a thorough investigation. Once the investigation was complete, Lara's case went to trial. He was charged with the crime of taking Kaylee Sawyer's life, and prosecutors pushed for the harshest sentence possible. His defense team attempted to challenge the admissibility of his confessions, claiming some statements were made under pressure, but the physical evidence and detailed consistencies left no room for alternative explanations. The jury found Lara guilty. A separate trial was held for the kidnapping of Andrea Mais. In her case, additional charges included threats, unlawful detention, use of a weapon, and psychological harm. Lara admitted to the actions, but again tried to minimize his responsibility. The court rejected his arguments. During the hearings, Kaylee's family members addressed the court. Their statements spoke to a loss that could never be repaired. They shared her dreams, who she was, and the deep, permanent damage Lara's actions had caused. For them, the verdict meant justice, and the assurance that this crime would not go unanswered. Andrea Mais also testified. She spoke about the fear, the moments when she thought she wouldn't survive, and the long road to healing that continued well beyond the courtroom. Her testimony underscored not only the trauma she endured, but her strength in staying composed under extreme threat. The court sentenced Edwin Lara to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This decision reflected both the severity of his actions and the ongoing danger he posed to others. And here's the key point. The sentence was based not only on what he had done, but on the lasting impact he had on public safety and trust within the community. The consequences of his actions rippled through two families, one that lost a daughter and one that survived a kidnapping. The crimes also led to serious changes in campus safety protocols and a full review of how security officers are trained and monitored. What Edwin Lara did shattered lives, shook an entire region, and left scars that this community continues to heal from.